Hello and welcome to autoX, and I start this video on a slightly dim note. My friend Shivank here, he's in a bit of a pickle, and I'll let him explain why.
Well, it was the month of July 2023. I'd gone to Pune for the launch of the Triumph Speed 400 and Scrambler 400X. And 2 hours after the launch, when I was on my way back, I put my money down and booked the Scrambler 400X. That is without even riding the bike. I just saw the motorcycle and I was just completely blown away by that motorcycle. So I booked it immediately. But here's the sad part. The motorcycle was only going to be delivered in October 2023. And that's when
Royal Enfield decided to throw a spanner in the works by giving us the new Himalayan. And like Shivank Bhatt here, I'm sure a lot of you are in the same bit of confusion which one to choose. And I assure you, you're not the only one having this problem. So we've ridden both bikes on and off the road, and by the end of this video, we hope that his and your confusion is put to rest. So we're going to talk about it, we're going to discuss each aspect of both motorcycles one by one, and let's see which one he'd rather have or you would rather have. All right, let me start with this. Shivank, you booked the motorcycle, like not having ridden it. What's up? What's the deal?
Well, usually I don't do that because I take a long time, I think long and hard before making a decision like that. But the Scrambler 400X, the moment I looked at that motorcycle, it was quite attractive. First of all, it looked like a proper Triumph. The fit and finish, the quality, everything on that motorcycle looked perfect. And even in terms of size and dimension, I think it looked like a proper Scrambler. It looked like a proper Triumph. So I knew what to expect in terms of performance, handling and all, because again, it is a Triumph. It is engineered by the folks in Britain. So going by the history, I was expecting what it's supposed to do. But yeah, it was a love at first sight, and that's why I booked it. And I think, yeah, I still feel the same for that motorcycle.
All right, let me start with this, that I went for the first ride of the Scrambler 400X, and I think it looks really good. It is a spitting image of the Scrambler 900 and the 1100, and it just gets you. Like, if you walk up to it, the first impressions are really good. The way it feels beneath you feels powerful. Like, you can do a lot with it, you can have a lot of adventures, and I think that's what gets you. But the problem comes about when the Himalayan comes into the picture. That is, I think, one of the best designs to ever come out of an Indian-made manufacturer. It looks like a proper ADV. In fact, it looks like a proper European ADV. And if I had to speak a little bit about ergonomics, the Scrambler, when I got on top, there was still a bit of a reach to the ground. But the Himalayan just fit me to the T. I'm 5'6.5", and I was reaching the ground with no problem whatsoever. The Himalayan seems to conform around you, but the Scrambler 400X leaves you wanting a bit more when it comes to ergonomics and the slight practicality of riding it.
Well, yeah, I think the Himalayan, to me, in terms of design, I still think it's a great looking motorcycle. Like you said, looks like a proper ADV middleweight, and it looks like a bigger motorcycle than the Triumph. But for me, the quality is not that great. I mean, it's good, but it's not as great as the Triumph. The other thing is, like you said, accessibility in terms of seat height. It is, I think, 805 mm with the lower seat setup, and it goes up to 845 millimeters. So 825 to 845 is the standard one, and 805 to 825 is the low seat setup. And the Triumph, it has just one setup, which is 835 millimeters. And for shorter riders, even for myself, I'm 5'8", I was still kind of struggling to flat-foot it as compared to the Himalayan, because the Himalayan felt natural from the get-go. Yes, it is slightly intimidating than the old Himalayan, but overall, I have to say that the Himalayan, it kind of shrinks around you. The Scrambler, like you said, you sort of sit on top of the motorcycle because it has come from a street motorcycle, the Speed 400. So it doesn't feel all that natural or ADV-like. But the Himalayan, you sit rather in it, and again, it feels like a proper ADV, or it feels more natural for some reason. And that's what I love about the Himalayan. But overall, if I have to talk about design, how alluring the Triumph is, I still think aesthetically the Triumph is my pick between the two. I know the Himalayan is great, but that brand value that the Triumph has, I have to go for that. So I still think if it was just a competition between which one looks better, I'd still pick the Scrambler 400X.
For me, it is the Himalayan. In fact, like I want to go down to the basic need. You want something which looks like it's ready for adventure in terms of its design, in terms of how it's put together. I think the Himalayan really does it for me. I'm sold as soon as I saw. In fact, I was sold on the Scrambler, but the Himalayan. That's what I'm saying. It comes into the picture, and you just gravitate towards it. So for me, in terms of the riding position, in terms of how it looks, it'll be the Himalayan.
Okay, so now let's talk about features and equipment, because in that department, I think you have to give it to the Himalayan.
Yeah.
It packs a lot of stuff, right? A lot of tech. The Triumph in comparison is bare basic. You get ride-by-wire throttle, you get your traction control, you get ABS and all that. But still, I think the Himalayan, what it brings to the table is that all new tech, connectivity, and you've got that smartphone and you've got your maps on the dash. So overall, that works really well. But I think, a lot of people miss it because the maps on the Himalayan, that is main talking point. But I think you have to use your phone alongside. It has to be on all the time. So it is going to sap battery from your phone. It's not that it's connected wirelessly, and it is connected wirelessly, but your phone also has to be on all the time. So, it's like back to square one. It kind of doesn't serve the purpose because it's like you can use your phone instead on a mount. Again, it's a different story. You can't use mount on the phone or whatever, but it doesn't solve the purpose. So it is a bit fidgety in that sense. But yeah, in terms of features, I have to say that the Himalayan offers a lot more. But before you start, I have to say that the headlamps on the Himalayan, they are quite not bad, but average. I think the Scrambler's headlamps are brilliant in comparison.
Okay, so first I'll start with the Scrambler. I think this is Triumph's first product where they had to understand economies of scale. That's why I somewhat understand the route they took. They gave us a good price, but it's sort of lacking in the features department. And another thing which I found, that it has traction control over Himalayan, but in a bike, 400cc, 40 bhp, you don't really need TC. So the only advantage it had mechanically over the Himalayan is kind of negated in that aspect. And another thing, when you have to switch off traction control or switch on the off-road mode, that gets a bit fidgety on the Scrambler. You have to scroll through the menu with the I button, hold down the I button for about 5 seconds, and you have to count in your head. I'm not here to do maths, I'm here to ride the motorcycle. And it's simple in the Himalayan. You have two modes, performance, eco, and you can switch off ABS in either modes. And I think that was a really cool touch. I really like the dash as well. It's a 4.3-inch color TFT unit. It's crisp, it's easy to use at any point of the day. It looks good. And headlights, I do agree with you there as well. The Scrambler has really good headlights. That's something I do miss on the Himalayan. You can really get people aware of your presence on the Scrambler, but it's kind of hard to do that with the Himalayan. So I think, Himalayan has more features, but the Scrambler has a bit of things which has over the Himalayan, but Himalayan it is. So I think we move on from there.
Okay, so now let's talk about the heart of the matter, the engine.
Yeah.
Now again, both are single cylinders, liquid cooled. The Himalayan is a 450cc, the Scrambler is a 400cc. They produce around 40 bhp each, and the torque is also similar. It's 38 Newton meters and 40 Newton meters. And again, in that department, so tell me, what do you think about the engines?
All right, so in the sequence of events, I rode the Scrambler first. I thought it was a great motorcycle for city and off-road use. It has a lot of low-end grunt, which just gets you going. I like motorcycles that have a grunty feel, that get up and go, which you want, and the Scrambler did it for me. But it's when you get it out onto an open stretch of road that you do feel it runs out of oomph. And that's where the Himalayan comes in. That Sherpa 450 engine, I think, is a peach. It has a decent amount of low end, but the mid end punch and the top end feel which it has, I think that is what elevates it over the Scrambler. It feels more all-rounded in its purpose, be it off-road or on-road. Whereas the Scrambler felt it was a good on-road bike which can adapt to off-road. The Himalayan felt it can do everything. So I feel that's where I would put both motorcycles.
I think another thing that makes the Triumph so peppy in comparison to the Himalayan is also the shorter gearing, because as compared to the speed, I think they've altered the final drive, so it's shorter now. And it has that peppy response. It's like, get up and go, like you said.
Yeah.
In comparison to that, the Himalayan feels a little subdued. The Himalayan, a lot of people say that it doesn't have, it has weak bottom end and all that, but I didn't feel it. In the city, it felt perfectly fine because I was kind of, picking up from as low as 20 kilometers per hour in third gear. And I just had to slip the clutch a little. That was it. But it felt perfect to me, to be very frank. Even off-road, it was okay. Yes, you have to slip the clutch a bit. But it's not that it's weak, right? Honestly speaking. But yeah, the Scrambler definitely has more grunt. It has that single cylinder torque that usually you associate with the Royal Enfield. So the Scrambler definitely feels,
more Royal Enfield.
More Royal Enfield, more sprightly in that sense. But yeah, the Royal Enfield is also not that bad, because it's just that when you put both the motorcycles back to back, that's when you realize that the Scrambler has more grunt. The other problem, it's probably, it's a great thing about the Scrambler because the shorter gearing, it likes to be revved. It's a very rev happy motorcycle. Even the Himalayan is like that. But the Scrambler, I thought the gearing was a little short. So in the street, it's perfectly fine. In the city, it's perfectly fine. When you're doing your daily commutes, it's perfectly fine. You want to squeeze it through gaps, it feels perfect. But out on the open road, I thought it would run out of steam because of the short gearing. Because there were instances where I was riding Himalayan first and then I jumped onto the Scrambler, and the Himalayan feels very relaxed. It is an ADV, right? So the Himalayan, as a touring motorcycle, it feels perfect. You're cruising at triple digit speeds. It feels perfect in sixth gear. It is calm and composed. But the Scrambler, it's always like on the boil. And there are more vibrations on the Scrambler as well. So I think even in the city, if your commute is, like my commute is 60% highway and 40% city traffic. So on the highway, I'd probably still prefer the Himalayan because, I'm doing around 80, 100 all the time. And there, I think the Scrambler, even though it has a lot of power, it somehow feels a little strained. Did you also feel the same?
Yes, I did feel it was strained, but one thing I'd like to add is that I have a Triumph Trident 660. I know what those triples feel like, and I can understand where Triumph came from in terms of engineering. They wanted to sort of mimic that engine personality where in third gear, you get off the line from 20 all the way up to triple digit speeds. That's no problem at all. But it's the mid-end punch which you want after the low-end feel, which is a bit missing, and that's where they kind of faltered.
I think the Himalayan does that brilliantly because the Himalayan, nobody expected to be a peaky motor, right? But Royal Enfield has done the polar opposite, and it loves to be revved, and it is quite happy to be revved. Of course, there are vibrations, and it also heats up a bit in traffic, but that goes for the Scrambler as well. Again, it's winter in Delhi, so we actually enjoyed the heat, right? But overall in the summer, probably it'll be a different story. But yeah, I think I was really surprised by the Himalayan, given how peaky or how rev happy that motor now feels as compared to the old 411 that used to come earlier.
Alright, so if you had to pick a motorcycle for city use between the two, which one would you rather have? Now, given the ergonomics, we'll get to the ride and handling, but given the ergonomics and the engine.
I think this is where the Himalayan kind of surprised me again, because I'm biased towards the Triumph, right? That's a motorcycle that, like I said, it's a love at first sight. But when I rode the Himalayan in the city, I felt it to be more natural. Even the engine performance, the clutch, everything felt in sync. The Scrambler, for some reason, it didn't quite click. It didn't quite feel natural. Of course, it's light and you love riding it in the city. But for me, the suspension felt a little soggy. It was a little squishy also. And the brakes, they don't have that sort of bite. So I didn't really enjoy kind of scrambling in town. That's the purpose of that motorcycle, that it has to be a hooligan. Of course, the engine is nice, the exhaust note is nice, but for some reason, I didn't have confidence in the whole package. But the Himalayan, on the other hand, even though it's a big ADV, it's 200 kilos as opposed to 186 kilos, the Himalayan felt to me a better city motorcycle as well. So even in the city, I prefer riding the Himalayan because you've got good visibility. You're sitting, high up, and you can have a good look around. The brakes are really good compared to the Scrambler for sure. They have more bite. The clutch action is light. I love the engine. It loves to be revved. The suspension is beautiful because the way Royal Enfield has set it up, it's just beautiful. A lot of people are complaining that it should have gotten adjustable suspension, but I don't think so. I think they've just nailed it because you take it off-road, you ride in the city, you go around corners. The Himalayan the old Himalayan used to feel neutral, but this one feels brilliant. I'd say it feels excellent in all departments. So I think that is a big step up. So for me, even as a city bike, and I'm surprised, I was expecting the Triumph to be a lot better, and I was thinking it was not going to be this close. But I think as a city bike also, to me, the Himalayan probably feels better not because of its size, but because how natural it feels.
So for me, if I had to pick for a city bike, only in terms of ergonomics and engine, it would have to be the Himalayan. But I think the handling part is what the Scrambler makes up for in the city. They've increased the wheelbase and they've sharpened up the rake. So it's made it a bit more nimble than the Speed 400 and a bit more stable than the Speed 400, which is a good motorcycle on its own. But I feel it feels a lot more agile to use and more accessible for new riders to whip around town in than the Himalayan. Himalayan still has bulk. You may not feel it, but it still has the bulk, and you have to carry that bulk around. But the Himalayan just feels good in all departments.
The Scrambler, the moment you take it out of the town, on the open road or off road or wherever it is, it starts to show its flaws because, like in the hills, it's not as stable as a Speed, even though it is a great handler. But again, to me, it felt a little soft, or I didn't have enough confidence on the front end also. Even off-road, I felt the same because the suspension, it's never settled all the time, right? It doesn't have the sort of planted feel that you get on the Himalayan. The Himalayan feels rock solid everywhere. But I didn't get that same confidence on the Scrambler 400X. So even on twisties, it didn't feel as great as I was expecting it to be. On the highway, a lot of wind blast, right? The ergonomics are not that great. It is slightly aggressive. The seat is nice, but not as nice as the Himalayans. So for me, yes, it might look like that I'm just pointing out flaws after flaws for the Triumph. It's a great motorcycle in isolation. It's a great motorcycle. But the Himalayan, the moment you just jump onto the Himalayan from the Scrambler, that's when you start to see, okay, the Himalayan feels like more complete motorcycle. Now, off-road, I'd say the Scrambler, the suspension feels soft. It has less travel. It's 150 millimeters at both ends. I think the Himalayan has 200 millimeters. The ground clearance, Himalayan has 230 millimeters of ground clearance as opposed to the Scrambler, which is 195 mm. But the great thing is, the Scrambler comes with better protection because it has got a solid metal bash plate, and you've also got handguards. The Himalayan comes with nothing as standard. And in fact, during the shoot, we dropped the Himalayan. It was on the stand. It was a standstill crash. And we ended up, the liver, I think, got bent, right? And yeah, that was that. So it was like a harmless sort of fall, but it ended up with a damage.
All right, so now here I also would like to mention that yes, none of these motorcycles would be taken off-road to a large extent, but I tried my best to not have any mechanical sympathy for these motorcycles in city use. Every speed breaker was jumped and every pothole was hopped across, and now in that time I felt the Himalayan gave me more confidence to do a lot more because it has a 21-inch steel wheel as opposed to the 19-inch alloy on the Scrambler, which I didn't want to bend or damage in any way. So Yeah, I mean, even if you hone around in the city, this Himalayan would be your best bet, I feel. For
And
now.
speaking of wheels,
Yeah.
so the Himalayan is also going to get cross-spoke tubeless wheels. And I think a lot of customers, a lot of prospective customers are waiting for that, because none of the other motorcycles, even in middleweight category, I don't think there are a lot of motorcycles which get tubeless wheels, tubeless spoke wheels. So I think that is a big deal, and that shows that Royal Enfield has gone to that extent in ensuring that this is a proper ADV machine.
Great. So now you need to hold that thought, because speaking about on the fence, I know you have your answer or which one you'd choose between the two. So without further ado, which one would you rather have?
Okay, so if I have to be honest, objectively, it is the Himalayan, because it is a well-rounded product. It is a more complete product. And the main problem is the pricing, because the Himalayan is 2.69 lakh for base variant, which gets virtually everything apart from paint job, I think. And the Triumph Scrambler is 2.63 lakh. I think that's why I've been a little harsh towards the Triumph, because it's so close to the Himalayan, dangerously close to the Himalayan, just 6,000 rupee difference between the two. And I think for that money, you get a lot more with the Himalayan. It is, like I said, a more complete motorcycle and it brings a lot more to the table. But having said that, I still think I'm biased towards the Triumph, because I just am attracted to the brand name, and I'm not shying away from the fact that I still prefer brand Triumph over brand Royal Enfield. I've never been a Royal Enfield fan, to be very frank, and I've never associated with the brand. I know a lot of customers also feel the same way, but you have to ride the Himalayan, and I think you're going to be a convert. I feel a little shortchanged with the Triumph, so I'm not sure if I'm going to go ahead with the purchase. But at the same time, I'm also not sure if I'd buy the Royal Enfield Himalayan, because again, I'm a little confused. I'll still take some time, but impulsively, if I have to pick one, I'd still pick the Triumph. Okay, I know I might have confused the viewers a little more, but Karan, you being the neutral party, you tell the ladies and gentlemen, what should they prefer?
All right, as a journalistic verdict, I'd say if you have mainly on-road use, main importance is brand value, about fit and finish, about people talking about your possession. I think the Triumph Scrambler would be the one to go for. But if you are someone who enjoys taking their motorcycles out, you will have more use of the motorcycle even after office hours. The Himalayan is definitely the one to go for. It is definitely a far stretch from Royal Enfields of yesteryear, and it is a real revolution for the brand. Personally though, I already have a Triumph road-going motorcycle, and I want something which will be a little more adventure-ready, something which will be better off-road, and I would have the Himalayan.
Okay, so that's added more confusion, to be frank. But you let us know which motorcycle do you prefer, because both the motorcycles are great in their own right. But if you had to pick one, just tell us, would you listen to your head or your heart? Which motorcycle would you pick? Let us know in the comment section. Don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and yeah, subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Thank you for watching.